Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we live.
Informally, we are live. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of my TV-DMV. Today, we are definitely recognizing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and we don't care about his religion or any of the things that they tried to say negative about him. We recognize him as a brother who stood strong and was a leader for the civil rights movement. On the show today, I have two guests. One we are already familiar with, which is Abdullah, but I also have another guest. And I want to introduce them, and then we're going to, as a matter of fact, I want you to introduce yourselves. Kwasi, you can go first. Tell the community who you are.
So peace, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and be a part of the show tonight. I'm Kwasi part of Tribe Ujima, near the foreign political zone that's been taught to the masses as LaGrange, Georgia. I am the president of we have a nonprofit organization where we do various community outreach initiatives to engage the community. And so we have a chess program, about 35 students. We have a community garden, and then we'll be relaunching our community clean team and as an environmental component to connecting our community. And I'm also a part of the National Human Rights Campaign, the Declaration on the Rights of the Child, Principle 3. Every child from birth shall be entitled to a name and nationality. I also have been elected the junior ambassador for the Save Our Sons Committee, World Council of Mayors Save Our Sons Committee. I been studying under Brother Abdullah Bey and other Shem and others for about 2.5, 3 years now. And so I'm just very excited to be a part of uplifting our unconscious brothers and sisters that's been classified as Negro, Black, and colored, and do this humanitarian work that we've been doing. And so I'm just humbled to be here and appreciative to be able to put the word out today, which the topic is, are we judged by the color of our skin? And so I digress for that.
Yeah, that and the main that's the main title. The subtitle is or a hidden or a cover up of a hidden truth. Najmah, won't you read my bio, because I don't want to miss anything.
Right. I'll read your bio. But we're also intertwining this with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and how his messages really are still not being heard today, still not being honored today. So the topic and the ritual itself are intertwined, and we're giving homage to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We're summoning his energy today so that we can know that we're still out here. As the young people say, we still out here. And so we still have a job and a commitment to talk about our history and make our history relevant without feeling any kind of way about how we present our past and our future, actually, as well. Okay, so Abdullah Bey, the intro. In 1995, Brother Bey established the Moorish Civil Letter newsletter and a prison education outreach. In 2013, Brother Bey established the Masonic Gate newspaper to expand his educational network and outreach. In 2022, Brother Bey co-founded the Moroccan Post School of Government and International Law and serves as a teacher and curriculum developer. Brother Bey is working cooperatively with Dr. World Group / Sasha L. and Manti Eli Kwasi L. of Ujima Tribe and Rahim Allah Bey of the International Human Rights Commission Regional USA as chairs of the Human Rights Nationality for the Children National Campaign, which promotes the 1959 United Nations Declaration of the Rights of the Child and UNESCO 1979 International Year of the Child, so as to raise international awareness and dehumanization and mass denationalization of the children in North America. This effort is in line with his teaching nationality to 5,000 students in Camden City Public Schools for 10 years and teaching nationality, etymology, vocabulary building, dictionary study skills, and 10 years of teaching and grammar, to 2,000 adults who were students at Temple University Pan-African Studies Community education program from 2003 to the present. In September 2024, Brother Bay was honored by the Church of Scientology as the Human Rights Educator. Recently, Brother Bay was voted as an affiliated member of the World Conference of Mayors and its Save Our Children Committee. Brother Bay has authored several books, namely Moors and Masonry, Part 1 and Part 2, The Masonic Compass, and Square and Their Connection to Measurement and Timekeeping, Etymology, and Vocabulary, etc. Welcome, both of you, and thank you so much. This show actually came into fruition yesterday. Spirit came to me because an incident happened with a European. And it was just really weird to me, but I realized that it was the beginning of me having to call you. And when I called you and you said, you have to talk to you since Mother's Day. And I said, we have to give some homage to Dr. King. And it just came about. This is how it happened. And it made me feel some kind of way with this interaction with this European, because it was such an evil look that I got. And it put something in my heart as a woman. And then as a Black woman, it was something about this man that made me feel like he is the child of some of these people that Dr. King was talking about. So now I'm in the community with these children and having to deal with the same energy that Dr. King had to deal with. It's a challenge, but we're going to get through it. I want to go to one quick clip real fast, and then we can discuss it, and then we can also kind of go into whatever you want to. But this clip in particular,
and you have seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers at will and drown your sisters and brothers at whim, when you have seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, and even kill your Black brothers and sisters, when you see the vast majority of your 20 million Negro brothers smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society, when you suddenly find your tongue twisted and your speech stammering as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter why she can't go to the public amusement park that has just been advertised on television, and see tears welling up in her eyes when she is told that Funtown is closed to colored children, and see ominous clouds of inferiority beginning to form in her little mental sky, and see her beginning to distort her personality by developing an unconscious bitterness toward white people. When you have to concoct an answer for a 5-year-old son who is asking, "Daddy, why do white people treat colored people so mean?" When you take a cross-country drive and find it necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable corners of your automobile because no motel will accept you, when you are humiliated day in and day out by nagging signs reading white and colored, when your first name becomes nigger, your middle name becomes boy, however old you are, and your last name becomes John, and your wife and mother are never given the respected title Mrs., when you are harried by day and haunted by night by the fact that you are a Negro, living constantly at tiptoe stands, never quite knowing what to expect next, and are plagued with inner fears and outer resentments, when you are forever fighting a degrading and degenerating sense of nobodiness, then you will understand why we find it difficult to wait. There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over, and men are no longer willing to be plunged into the abyss of despair. I hope, sirs, you can understand our legitimate and unavoidable impatience. You express a great deal of anxiety over our willingness to break laws. This is certainly a legitimate concern. Since we so diligently urge people to obey the Supreme Court's decision of 1954, outlawing segregation in the public schools, at first glance it may seem rather paradoxical for us consciously to break laws. One may well ask, how can you advocate breaking some laws and obeying others? The answer lies in the fact that there are two types of laws, just and unjust. I would be the first to advocate obeying just laws. One has not only a legal but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. I would agree with St. Augustine that an unjust law is no law at all. Now, what is the difference between the two? How does one determine whether the law is just or unjust? A just law is a man-made code that squares with the moral law of the law of God. An unjust law is a code that is out of harmony with the moral law. To put it in the terms of St. Thomas Aquinas, an unjust law is a human law that is not rooted in eternal and natural law. Any law that uplifts human personality is just. Any law that degrades human personality is unjust. All segregation statutes are unjust because segregation distorts the soul and damages the personality. It gives the segregator a false sense of superiority and the segregated a false sense of inferiority. Segregation, to use the terminology of the Jewish philosopher Martin Buber, substitutes an I-it relationship for an I-thou relationship and ends up relegating persons to the status of things. Hence, segregation is not only politically, economically, and sociologically unsound, it is morally wrong and sinful. Paul Tillich has said that sin is separation, is not segregation, an existential expression of man's tragic separation, his awful estrangement, his terrible sinfulness. Thus, it is that I can urge men to obey the 1954 decision of the Supreme Court, for it is morally right, and I can urge them to disobey segregation ordinances, for they are morally wrong. Let us consider the more concrete expression of just and unjust laws. An unjust law is a code that a numerical or power majority group compels a minority group to obey, but does not make binding on itself. This is difference made legal. But by the same token, a just law is a code that a majority compels a minority to follow, and that is, it is willing to follow itself. This is sameness made legal. Let me give another explanation. A law is unjust if it is inflicted on a minority that as a result of being denied the right to vote had no part in enacting or devising the law. Who can say that the legislature of Alabama, which set up that state's segregation laws, was democratically elected? Throughout Alabama, all sorts of devious methods are used to prevent Negroes from becoming registered voters. And there are some counties in which, even though Negroes constitute a majority of the population, not a single Negro is registered. Can any law enacted under such circumstances be considered democratically structured. Sometimes the law is just on its face and unjust in its application. I hope you are able to see the distinction I am trying to point out. In no sense do I advocate evading or defying the law, as would the rabid segregationists. That would lead to anarchy. One who breaks an unjust law must do so openly, lovingly, and with a willingness to accept the penalty. I submit that an individual who breaks a law that conscience tells him is unjust and who willingly accepts the penalty of imprisonment in order to arouse the conscience of the community over its injustice is in reality expressing the highest respect for law. Of course, that is nothing new about this kind of civil disobedience. It was evident sublimely in the refusal of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to obey the laws of Nebuchadnezzar on the ground that a higher moral law was at stake. It was practiced superbly by the early Christians who were willing to face hungry lions and the excruciating pain of chopping blocks rather than submit to certain unjust laws of the Roman Empire. To a degree, academic freedom is a reality today because Socrates practiced civil disobedience. In our own nation, the Boston Tea Party represented a massive act of civil disobedience. We should never forget that everything Adolf Hitler did in Germany was legal, and everything the Hungarian freedom fighters did in Hungary was illegal. It was illegal to aid and comfort a Jew in Hitler's Germany. Even so, I am sure that had I lived in Germany at the time, I would have aided and comforted my Jewish brothers. If today I lived in a communist country where certain principles dear to the Christian faith are suppressed, I would openly advocate disobeying that country's anti-religious laws. I must make two honest confessions to you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. First, I must confess that over the past few years I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. I had hoped that the white moderate would understand that law and order exist for the purpose of establishing justice, and that when they fail in this purpose, they become the dangerously structured dams that block the flow to social progress. I had hoped that white moderates would understand that the present tension in the South is a necessary phase of the transition from an obnoxious negative peace in which the Negro passively accepted his unjust plight to a substantive and positive peace in which all men will respect the dignity and worth of human personality. Actually, we who engage in nonviolent direct action are not the creators of tension. We merely bring to the surface the hidden tension that is already alive. We bring it out in the open where it can be seen and dealt with, like a boil that can never be cured.
All right. He said a lot in that clip. And it made me kind of go back and close, think about the time period that he was in and relate it to actually the time period that we're in with the false elections and all of these things. But he said something that was profound. He said, it's not the KKK that you have to worry about. It's the modern ones. It's the ones that you're around daily, not really somebody that's in a mask. They're more dangerous. So we can start with you, Abdullah. Talk about what you saw in the clip and relate it to even the educational piece that he spoke about. Whatever you choose to talk about in just that one clip. I can't hear you.
We're going to elevate the consciousness of our people.
Okay.
I know that what I'm about to say is going to be, you have our brothers and sisters who love Dr. King dearly. And the direction that Kwasi and I will go today is not the direction that Dr. King took us. So our brothers and sisters who love Dr. King dearly would see Kwasi and me as being disrespectful to Dr. King. Dr. King did what he knew to do. I give Dr. King great honors and respect. He only knew what he knew to do.
Was he a Mason?
Well, let me, I don't want to address that right now. I'm just talking about he knew what he knew to do. Because I just want to finish my friend of thought here. He knew what he did, what he knew to do. All right. And the unjust, it is unjust to strip a people of who they are and to dehumanize them with black, Negro, and colored. That is the unjust. That is very, very, very unjust. I know that our people who really think that they're black and who love Dr. King dearly, all right, will see that it's a slap in the face against Dr. King. Once again, I said he did what he knew to do. But we have to elevate the audience, the listening and the viewing audience, that the unjust act is dehumanizing a people and classifying them as black, Negro, colored. That we must be clear. That's the unjust act.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, holding us down, unjust. Yes. I'm not. Those other acts are unjust. So I'm not. But we're very clear. The point, what he calls unjust, is definitely unjust. So I'm not disputing that. But we want to make it clear what is also unjust, and the greatest unjustness is classifying a people, dehumanizing a people, and classifying them as Negro, colored, black. Okay, we want to add that into the unjust. He did not mention that because he didn't know it. But we have to address that because that is very unjust. What does that mean, Abdullah? When you classify a people, because you're stripping a people of who they are. You're removing them. You're denying by classifying us as black, Negro, colored. It denies us our right to reclaim our land because what happens is that lack of knowledge is not passed down of who we are. We're not talking about a mere identity. I'm not talking only from a mere identity perspective. I am talking from rights, human rights. I'm talking from birthright, inheritance perspective. I'm talking from culture perspective as well. Treaty protection. Their right to be able to refine their way back. But now by not having a knowledge of who we are. And remember, this has been generational. So we're not just talking about 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. We're talking about over 200 years, over 16 generations. So I speak for those who are in the grave. I speak for those who've been in the grave for 100 years, 200 years, 300 years. That is a grave unjustness. A generation, 16 plus generations of people growing up, dying, not knowing who they are, being denied their land rights, treaty protection, being denied human rights, being subjugated to a dehumanizing classification of black, Negro, colored, stripping them of their dignity with being classified as black, Negro, colored. So yes, what Dr. King mentioned, those acts are unjust. Absolutely. So I'm not minimizing those acts that Dr. King allude to. I'm also adding to black, Negro, colored being classified as that as a people is very unjust. It's dehumanizing. Not only unjust, but dehumanizing. So we got to put this on the table. This is very important. All right. I
Thank
yield.
you for that. Kwasi?
Yes. As I was listening to the speech, what kept standing out to me is Philip K. Dick. His quote was, "If you can control the meaning of words, the easiest." All right. So the quote is, "The easiest manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words.
The
If you
basic
can,
tool.
the
Basic
basic
tool.
tools, yeah, the basic tools for the manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words. And if you can control the meaning of words, you can control the people who must use them." And so it comes to light, and you can look at it like you say, when you look back at Martin Luther King time and you fast forward to now, you can see that statement come to fruition, and how you can put a people in a limited capacity if you're controlling the public meanings, that the masses are used to seeing, like the word black. We have the etymology of black. Uh, doesn't it deals with the etymology of black doesn't deal with complexion, and so we see the manipulation of
You
words.
also you talking about the word color? Or you talking about the etymology of the word color?
The etymology of the word black dealing with pale,
Yeah,
and
then
not.
also add color too. All right.
Yeah, yeah. And so what I was alluding to was, that you can see the manipulation of words can push us in certain directions that necessarily won't benefit us when we talk in future generation and protection of our rights in the future generation. How do you protect your birthrights in a political sense? And with that code word black, what it does is it separates us from politically recognizing our land rights, our land claims, our inherent rights, and human rights. And so it strips us of that political connection to the human family by using words. I used to play in the drum. I make an analogy, and when you're playing the drums, or if you're playing the flute or any instrument, every note that you play, or every cadence that you play, is not whatever you want to choose. So through the manipulation of words, they have taken us off our cadence. And so now the song that we play, that we resonate to the world, is not that of our own song. And with the power of words, what they're able to do is suppress the way that we play the song to the audience, the way that we have nation to nation relation with other nations of the earth. And so we have been suppressed in the way that we play our instrument by the controlling and the usage of words. And so the word black, what it does is it shelters us within the family of nations, to put us in a category from which you have codes and statues, you know, and what it does is we're not able to vibrate or resonate at our potential, is because all that exists is words, you know, for its manifestation. And when we're communicating in language, you know, and contracts and constitutions and things of that nature that separates us, we only can invoke, you know, how we feel on the inside. And so with the manipulation of words, we can invoke a constitution to protect our people in the future generations, because our cadence have been changed. They've changed the way we play our notes. And so when I listen to that speech, I see that there was a song to be played in the family of nations. And Martin Luther King, he knew that, but the cadence that was being played was a note that was not original to our own.
Mhm. Okay.
Oh, that's a great, well put. That was well put. Good analogy. Good analogy.
And I can
Great
go on with it. I just didn't want to be too
great
long-winded.
responses from both of you. I want to go into the chat real quick, because the question really was dealing with the video itself and certain words that he was saying. And even for me to think back to, you know, who were my ancestors at that time? You know, the women, even because I'm a woman, you know, what were they experiencing at that time? Even though, you know, I know that my blood ancestor women were involved as I am, and finding that out, what were they doing during that time period? Having known that, I believe that he was a Mason. And so even with the fact that he probably was a Mason, and how he actually had to live his life to some degree, being a Mason, knowing certain things and not telling certain things. Someone in the chat said, I've never seen the white hoodie, 40 years in person, like back then, definitely the everyday ones, which is one of the points that was made in the video, despite the fact that he references people as being black. The fact that he said, it's not the ones that's in the hoodie. That's something that, regardless if we call each other black or any other name, we can relate to some of the Europeans or the pale faces or whatever name we want to put on. We know their code names. And he even talked about the codes that are out here legally, the legal codes. But just going to the chat, because everyone's following him and listening to us, it's
And
true.
if I may,
See the KKK. You know, unless you're down south and you grew up in the South, maybe. But for the most part, where I live in the DMV, in Philly, you know, we're not going to see these things. But even in going to work, you feel certain things from certain Europeans, white people, pale faces, whatever name you want to give on them. And it's not all of them, because I've lived long enough to know that some of them are perfectly, really good people, I feel.
yeah.
But then some of them are the children of people who were walking with Dr. King. This is their children that are here amongst us. And so it's not going to be a time where we're going to sit and this is not a show where we're going to be bashing white people. You know, I'm strictly trying to stay on topic of what Dr. King was talking about and was walking during that time versus how we're walking now, dealing with the same issues that are going on, despite the fact that they are referencing us as being black.
All right, the topic today is, for the audience, the topic today is, are we judged by the color of our skin or a hidden cover-up of a hidden truth? This is the topic today. Are we judged by the color of our skin or a cover-up of a hidden truth? And this is, so we're definitely on topic. So
Okay.
as I was listening to this the speech, I was listening to how tie the topic in. How do I tie the topic in to what he was talking about? And so this is what I'm saying. So I also want to address that we need to call Europeans who they are, not what we want to call them. Like I don't
What
want
is
to call.
your
No,
name for them?
what's that?
What is your name for them?
No, it's not my name. It's
What
not my
name
name for them.
is that
No,
name?
no. This is for the audience. It's not my name for them.
I'm asking what's
It's
the name?
all right. Yes. So who they are by their nationality. It's
Okay.
their name for them, not that I give them. It's who they are, their nationality: English, Irish, French, Dutch, Polish, German. So it's not what we want to call them. It's who they are by nationality, ancestry, national origin, pedigree, genealogy, descent. This
When
is
I
because
say
this is part.
what they are. Unless they're Irish, sometimes I know because their hair is
No,
red.
no, no. I was just addressing. I don't want to give them a name. I want to identify them by their nationality, their genealogy, their ancestry. It's not. I don't want to make something up. I want to identify them as to who they are.
What's the
That's
broad
what I
name?
said.
What's the broad name to put them in a category? Because there's no way that if I go in the grocery store and I see someone in there that is Pell, that I'm going to automatically know what country they're from.
No,
So
I
you
wasn't.
said
No,
Europeans is the right word. You said
Najmah,
Europeans.
Najmah. I was just for the audience. I was addressing
I
for the
know that.
audience.
I know that. The
No, I
audience
was
is responding.
that
I hear
that
you.
that
Creole. Somebody said
it's not
Creole.
what we want to call them. That's what I'm saying. It's not what we choose to call them. That's all.
Someone
That's
said
all. I was addressing that.
Creole.
Not so much a broad word. I didn't want to. I want my point to be clear. My point. My
Okay.
point is not that what I choose to call them. I'm not even talking about a broad word. It's just talking about that's not what I choose to call them. It's who they are.
Okay.
That
Someone
yes.
in the
Because
chat said
what happens is all right. What happens is all right because of the because of the misconceptions and the manipulation of words. You know, people say it doesn't matter what you call yourself. You know what I mean? No, it's not it's who you are. Like I'm not calling myself a Moor. That's who I am. It's not something I came up for myself. I'm not, that's who we are by nationality.
everybody
Like,
doesn't refer to themselves as a Moor though, and
no,
that's
no,
okay.
no. Najmah, I'm talking about me.
I
Trying,
understand.
I'm just, trying to make a point here regarding words, the manipulation of words. So
I'm
we just
reading
want to
the
stay
chat.
on.
I'm reading the chat, Abdullah.
No, and I'm clarifying. What I'm doing is clarifying issues.
I get it, but there's more in the chat, and I don't want it to go by because I want to.
No, we're not going by. We good. I just want to just clarify the issue. That's all. We good.
Okay. So someone said Creole. They're called Creole. Another person said the narrative is racism. The truth is disinheritance. Another person said politically, the pale-skinned people in general are Europeans. So far, that's what's going on.
That's not correct. That's not correct. Because
Okay.
they're not Europeans. They're not that Queen Europa, a Phoenician queen. That name belongs to us. That's a Phoenician queen. Phoenicia, what the area that they call Europe. That's Phoenicia. That's Phoenicia. It's not Europe is the name of the Phoenician queen. But it's Phoenicia. So that's a Phoenician queen. So it was called Phoenicia before the Phoenician queen was born. So Queen Europa, a Phoenician queen. So that name does not belong to them. you know, so she called her subjects Europeans, but that name doesn't belong to them. Like you say, well, they're Europeans. No, that's not, the name doesn't belong to them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
that's why I'm doing this clarifying.
that's fine. That's fine. So one of the other points that was made in this particular clip, he talked about the codes of law, which got my attention a little bit because we know that laws are coded. And he kept saying that just law is a code and that segregation and all these different words are coded laws, and that it's just that you shouldn't abide by unjust laws, which is similar to what you're saying, is that if it's not real law, then don't abide by it. If it's not a real name to you, then don't use it. Don't abide by laws that have you as black and white. But as someone in the chat said, like generally speaking and politically speaking, not having to know what each and every person that we see that's a pale face or European, or somebody call them Creole, whatever words you want to use, when you don't know what grand word do you use for people who you say aren't considered Europeans, if you don't know what their nationality is.
All right, you have what's called the dramatic, and the language grouping. You have what's called dramatic languages. You have
Okay.
dramatic languages, and just dramatic means like a germinate. The word germinate, sprouting, budding. All right, so they would be dramatic. The Dutch, the French, the Dutch, the English, then the Germans. So they would be of the Germanic tribes. So the Germanic tribes. You have the Visigoths and you have the Ostrogoths. So they're part of the Germanic tribes. So now we're going back about 1700 years with the Germanic tribes. But European is Phoenician, Queen. We have to. So we're meaning that in attempt to try
In
to
spite of
find a
my
one
shattered
word.
dreams, I came to Birmingham with the hope that the white religious leadership of this community would see.
We want to be correct, because what the Europeans have, as Kwasi really put it very well, and quoting Philip K. Dick, and how the Europeans manipulate words. In fact, Kwasi has a series called "Silent Weapons for Quiet War," and the language is a silent weapon, and people don't see that. People won't. They'll see a gun, they'll see a knife, missile, but they won't see language. That is an unsuspecting. It is a silent weapon. So, Quaz, you talk about your series.
Yeah, I was gonna mention, as she was talking about Martin Luther King's presentation that she played, how he talked about the hosing, the dogs, and just the unjust, the way that we were treated, being hung, being damaged physically, by the quote unquote Europeans. So we look at media, and what's pushed in media we take as our only view. But as we look at it from a different angle, we begin to realize that the dogs, the hoses being hung, these are known weapons. You don't tell the people every way you attack them. So we look at what happened to us during that time period as if those are the weapons we're looking for. Like, long as they're not hosing us down, long as they're not sending the dogs after us, long as they're not shooting us down in the street, then we're okay with, like, type of thing. And so what Brother Abdullah Bey is trying to convey, it's not that we want to just pick and choose whatever words we're using. We're saying that the the weapon is the language. If I put a BB gun in front of you, a shotgun in front of you, and a dictionary in front of you, we we haven't been taught that all three of them are weapons. We will only say the BB gun and the shotgun is weapons. We won't see the dictionary, the connotative language that's prescribed in the dictionary. We don't see that as a weapon. So when we hear the speeches and when we watch the Martin Luther King speeches, we associate progress with where we're at now because we're no longer being hosed down. We're no longer being, hung, deliberately in public. We're no longer being shot down like they was doing back then, beating and rioting, people coming to your houses, burning down your houses. And so since that's not happening, we associate where we are now with progress. And so what we're bringing to the forefront is that is a weapon. Manipulation is a weapon. If you can manipulate a people to be naive of how you're actually attacking them, then you position yourself to continue to have abuses and mistreatments for generations to come without it being suspecting as a weapon. And so you have Negro, Black, and colored. This connects us, from being able to protect our gardens, to be able to protect our militias. That people have militias, people have gun clubs, people have we had Black Wall Streets, and so they use legislation to be able to justify them bombing and doing things to us. So we're bringing language to the forefront of it being a weapon that wasn't suspected by Martin Luther King at that time. So as when he was doing his speeches, he didn't see that some of the words that he was using was just like a sniper bullet piercing the heart of a soldier. He didn't see that the words could pierce the hearts of the future generations that will continue to separate us from being able to protect the things that we want, like life, liberty, pursuit to happiness, land claims, land rights, the things that we want. We don't see language as a barrier or as an obstacle for us to maintain having land rights, having health, health protection, being able to bring our children in the world in the hospitals. We don't see language as a part of facilitating that protection. And so we hear the speech, but what we're saying is we're bringing to the forefront that maybe Martin Luther King at that time didn't see these words that he was using as weapons to subject us for future times to come. So it's relevant to the speech, but we're just bringing what's not known to the masses about the speech, if that makes
Well,
sense. So
well received, but people that look like us, regardless as to what words he used to describe us back then or whatever words are being used now, they actually are being shot down still in the streets by, police officers. And, of course, I can't say that without saying that we're killing each other in the streets as well. But I'm speaking about what he was talking about back then. It is actually still happening right now. People are still going through being hung. We've heard lately there's several, men that look like you and Abdullah who've been found hung in several places. Delaware, behind Delaware State University, and just recently, some young man who was traveling in his truck going on the mail truck was found hung. So these things are in fact still happening, whether we want to classify these people that are happening to by any words or whatever words we want to use, because some people are Moors and they call themselves that. There are other people, but just like the brother said in the chat, politically speaking, we're talking about people who look like my 5 sons and my grandfather and my brother and my great-grandfather and my great-great-uncle who was hung, who I just had to have his death certificate corrected because of something that happened to him in the past. So I understand what you're both saying about the words and that you have to use the correct words, and Dr. King didn't use the correct words. And I'm not really caught on the words that he was using, more so than what was happening to my ancestors during that time period that he was walking the earth, and what is happening now and what continues to happen with people that should be trying to help this system be better at this stage. And let's talk about the people who are now off work on Monday that work with us or work with you or work with you if you do go into a job. A lot of them don't care about any of our issues. A lot of them really hate us. It's not all of them, right? It's not. But a lot of them really do not like us to this day. They don't, and they don't care what we call ourselves. They hate us. They show us that they hate us and have no respect for our nationality or anything like that. I want to. Someone in the chat said,
But let me address this real quick, Najma.
"Go ahead."
Once again, today's topic is, because we got it. I want to continue to reiterate today's topic. Are we judged? Because Kwasi and I are hitting today's topic. Are we judged by the color of our skin? And we got the word color in quotations. So I want to put big. So those who see the titles, are we judged by the color of our skin? The word color is a quotation. I want to explain why. Or a cover up of a hidden truth. So let's deal with the etymology of the word color. That means to hide or conceal. The legal meaning: hide, conceal, simulacrum, an appearance, distinguished from that which is real, deceptive, counterfeit, artificial, misleading, misguiding. That's color. Fake, not real. The etymology and the legal meaning of the word color has nothing to do with complexion, skin tone, or pigmentation, hue, or shade. So why that a word? How is it that a word has nothing to do with, and its etymological and legal meaning, having nothing to do with complexion, skin tone? How did it gain that meaning? What's the motive? What's the motive of constructing terms? People of color, colored people. The Europeans.
Certain words that we're not going to be killed in the street, or that if we use
Najmah, we're not talking Najmah. We never said that. I'm not implying Najmah.
You're saying that we have to use words, and I'm saying that I hear what you're saying. Let me
address that, Najmah. Let me address that. We're getting killed in the street. Yes, we are. Let me address that. Just give me a minute. We're getting killed in the street. Yes, we are. What Kwasi put it so well, because we want to be very clear that words do matter.
Absolutely.
Because what it does. Words matter big time, because what it does, it prevents us as a people. Yes, we're being killed. Yes, we're being shot down. Why? Why are we being killed? Why are we being shot down? Why we cannot unite politically? That's more the question. Why can't we not unite politically? Why can't we not use the international law remedy? Why can we not restore our loss of state? Why can we not recover our loss, more sovereignty? Why not? What is preventing us? What is preventing us from doing that? A lack of knowledge of who we are, and the continued bombardment of them weaponizing, constructing new meanings upon new meanings upon new meanings. What it does, it buries our history, our culture, our philosophy, our nationality, our land right claims. So what Kwasi said, that black, Negro, colored, prevents us, it dehumanizes us. And it doesn't, and we talk about for mind. We're not talking about one or two people, 10 or 20 people, 100 people. We're talking about generations, over 16 generations have been through European social engineering, have been guided into what? Distorted meaning. Let's look at this. The word color. So you have the word color, you got fountains, white only, color only. On the bus, white only, color only. It does matter, because by not a people not knowing who they are, we're not talking a mere identity. I'm not talking about, they're saying you're more. I'm not saying that. I'm saying what it does. I'm talking about the political protection that is tied to it, the international recognition to tie how it would guide us in our activity politically and the study. Uh, we're not saying, well, call yourself a more today. Because I don't want to. All right, I don't want to minimize what I'm saying. Call yourself a more today. You won't be shot at. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying as a people, because they're not going to take one or two of us. I'm talking about as a people, we'll be able to unite politically. I yield.
Okay, let's stick to the title, and then we're going to get to another clip to discuss. Are we judged by the color of our skin, or is it a cover up of hidden truth? I'll go first and speak from a woman's perspective, and then Kwasi, and then Abdullah, and then we can play another clip. I feel that I'm judged every day by just trying to just be. I'm judged on everything. I'm constantly being put in some box of what someone wants to label me as. And I'm a whole Gemini. So you're never going to box me in, first of all. You want to know, is she Muslim? Is she Moorish? What is she? What are the hidden truths? I have the hidden truths. I know the hidden truths of the divine feminine. And that doesn't just mean, some woman that's walking around and just gives birth. It's an energy. I have that. I'm judged every day by the way that I look. I'm treated differently, the differential treatment, because of the way that I look. So yes, the hidden truth behind it is that, yes, we do have to know who we are. We have to know who we are. As a woman, I have to know what my spiritual power is. And I have to know that I can't be around men who feel that my power isn't any greater or than their power, because it's reciprocal energy. And I want the energy reciprocated for me. So yes, I'm judged every day walking this earth looking the way I look. I have to deal with the bipolar Bettys on a daily basis. And that's challenging, dealing with bipolar Bettys and bipolar Kens, right? I won't even call them Europeans because the word is not, conducive to the two of you, but you know who I'm talking about when I say the word. I don't know what else I can't be anybody else but myself. I'm actually happy with who I am. I don't know why it's always scrutinized for Black women. We can't just ever just be. We always have to be what somebody else wants us to be. We're going to be ourselves, period. That's who we know to be, ourselves. We're not in the streets, or we're not out here coming back into this world to be controlled and put into some box about who we are. So yes, every day of my life, I walk this earth as a melanated woman with hue and a mitochondrial DNA that's connected to great dark energies and portals. And my ancestors do not play when it comes to me. So I have a spiritual army behind me as a woman. That's my take on the title. And so, Kwame, I'd like to hear your take on the title.
When I was growing up, I was taught, you all may have heard it too, where they say don't call a woman a bitch, or don't let a man call you a bitch. Don't let somebody call you anything they want to call you, and so, or don't speak badly of that child. Speak positive in that child so that they can grow up and believe in themselves. So you'll see grandmas and grandpas teaching the parents to make sure they watch their tongue on how they speak to their child so that they don't pass down generational social abuses to the child. And with that being said, we're going to look at what's the origin and thought of people being identified by skin tone. When did this come about? What's the origin of people identifying themselves as a quote unquote color or as a race? How has that thought been passed down generation to generation? Have we been taught to not call ourselves colored people? Have we've been taught not to let anybody call ourselves a bitch, bitch, or these different terms that they've taught us. But let's look at the origin of colored people. Where's the origin of race? The origin of identifying people as colors. What does that origin originate? And so I'm going to read part of this article that Brother Abdullah Bay and myself um, typed up. And so the origin of thought of people being identified by skin tone, complexion, and pigmentation. The fathers of the modern non-biological, non-ancestral, non-consanguineous, non-genealogical, birthright stealing, constructive paradigm. Franco Benier, the Nouvelle Division Delateri, new division of the world. So they were dividing up the people in classifications on how they wanted to classify the human families. So this origin of thought does not start with our ancestral mindset. And so you have note the physical traits such as the shape of the face were more important than mere color in this division. So you got different divisions on how you had Franco Beniers, Carl Linnaeus, and Johann Friedrich Blumenbach, different categories of how they would classify the human family. And and so these classifications are not our ancestral way of thinking. And so we want to bring to the forefront, are we judged by the color of our skin? Or is that a manipulation or an illusion for us to get off a track of who we are? So we asking that question to stimulate thinking around looking at certain words to show you all how words are being used as the weapon. And so we're not being judged by the color of our skin. That's so, but we're asking that so that we could look deeper into that quote to see if that's a misrepresentation of what's going on or if it's proper. And so we'll see Franco's Benier in the new division of the earth where he had four different classification types. One was Eurasian, two was Sib-Saharan, Black African, three was White Oriental, and four was Lapse. And then you had Carl Linnaeus. He also classified humans into four varieties. And this was in 1735 through 1756. So this is before you and I, before Martin Luther King, started our journey. And so we were adopting these definitions and meanings that was passed down from someone not of our ancestral thought. So we're passing down something into the next generation that's not of our origin and our natural way of thinking. Like we don't want to pass down to the daughter to answer to bitch, but we haven't been taught that color is a dehumanizing tactic, just like bitch is. When you saying it, applying it to humans, we're not putting it in the same category as bitch. We teach the children not to be called bitch, but we don't see color as that same disrespect being passed down generation to generation. So we're looking at Carl Linnaeus, Johann Friedrich Blumenbach, and Franco Benier and the origin of the race paradigm and how and why we're applying color to identify with humans. And so you also have Carl Linnaeus, and he had four different categories, and it was European white, American reddish. You this is not of our ancestral origin of thinking. This is being introduced to our process of thinking, which later manifests. You have a seed when you plant it at the garden, it manifests into something. So the words that's being deposited in our language begins to manifest into mistreatments, into abuses, into disunity. And not loving and supporting one another. These words that's deposited into our thinking that we pass down unknowingly become manifestation to what we see today. So we're bringing to the forefront how words are being used to manifest how we're acting, how the children are acting today in 2025. What should we be looking at? And so part of it is what we're calling ourselves because that's going to manifest into something tangible that we see and we're looking at what's going on. And so it's not just as simple as just calling ourselves more. It's what's the political aspect? What's the self-determination aspect behind calling ourselves more? What's the responsibility behind calling ourselves more? Are we meeting that responsibility now? Are we in the family of nations? Do we have ambassadors, consuls, wazirs and viziers? Do we have sheiks and different ambassadors to support us within the United States jurisdictional venue? Do we have these people positioned? So it's not just saying more, it's an application that applies. It's not just merely I'm a Moor and now the police gonna respect me. That's not the point. But we just spending time to go into it so that the audience may begin to understand it's the activation of it. It's not about knowing how to shoot a gun, it's to know where to put your finger on the trigger. How do you push the trigger to project the projectile for the weapon to be used? So how do we take more and utilize it to protect our health rights, our health benefits, our transportation, our education, our everything that we call freedom? How do we protect that? So we're looking at the activation of more and how it applies in the international community politically. Not just saying more means nothing, never meant nothing, just merely saying it, but it's learning the aspect and how do you apply it. But you can't apply it unless you first know it. Like you can't go to the international community and enforce treaties if you're stuck with calling yourself names that's outside of treaty protections. So you can't bring an argument in the right venue. We've seen where Dr. King talks civil rights. So he was talking different jurisdictions of law. But we're just talking treaty law. We're just talking internet. We're just not talking civil rights. We're talking human rights. You know, and
We can
so
only treat people and meet people as close as they need to be met regarding how we interpret their energy, right? So when you say manifesting with our ancestors and manifestations of words that we have to use, it's our own magic, regardless as to who we are. Our magic makes what happens with us. So I know for a fact.
let me say it like this: if your mom and your dad
Let me finish.
created something for you,
Let me
and
finish.
then
My brother.
if your mom and dad created something for you,
You cut
and
me
then
off.
no, I'm saying I want to just convey if
No,
your mom and dad created something for
Let
cut
you,
me off.
and then some.
Quasi, let her finish. Let her finish because let us finish. Let her finish.
Yeah, my point was I was just
No,
gonna go off of what she
let,
was saying
let
was
her finish, Kyle Quasi. Just let her finish. Let her finish.
I was trying to say that when you spoke of manifesting and you spoke of the words that we have to use to manifest, I'm speaking from a woman's perspective. Okay. I don't know how you walk your life as a man. I can't even imagine, right? But for me as a woman, when I'm manifesting my own magic and my own ancestral magic, whether I'm using Kali Ma or whoever I choose to use, it's my words that's making anything happen and manifest for me and other people that I may love, or they may not even be around me. I have that. That's the hidden. That's in the topic that you brought up. That's the whole hidden. I know who I am as a woman, and I'm happy with the gifts that I have. And it stirs people the wrong way, especially sometimes a lot of men that look like the two of you, as well as our oppositional forces that they're not all oppositionals, but with them as well. As a woman, sometimes it's just my response to something can trigger something because like, why are you speaking? Why are you speaking? Our magic is ours, whether we want to use it in the course of doing magic, which is all throughout the Bible. There's so much magic in the Bible that you can use the Bible. I don't discredit any of the holy books, right? But the ancestral magic that we use comes from a void space of darkness before anything else. It's a whole voided space. And that's me. That's where I'm conjuring my energy from that perspective. So when I can watch videos like Dr. King, I can watch videos of anyone because I'm extracting the good from it. I don't agree with a lot of things I hear on a day-to-day basis, but I'm not that one that's going to be in the room and just not be able to stay on something because I don't agree with everything. We're never going to always agree. But one thing we can agree on is that we know for a fact that children who look like our children are in fact being killed today as we speak by one another and definitely by police. That women who look like me are the most disrespected women. We don't have men taking up for us the way that bipolar Betty does. Bipolar Betty has a whole army where if they even shed a tear because of anything that we may or may not have done as women, bipolar Ken is on it. What did you do to Betty? Did you look at Betty a certain way? You didn't speak to Betty this morning and Betty's feeling some kind of way. Women who look like me, we don't have that type of protection. And we know for a fact that their households are totally different than ours. They don't have the same household that we have. We don't live around them unless we live around them, most of us, right? But as a woman, I'm going back to what you said about the ancestral energy, because I feel that if I use my energy that I have inside of me and from my DNA ancestors, my guardian angels, my archangels, I have a whole army around me. And honestly, they don't care what language I'm using. They only care about how I'm telling them and demanding them to do what I say, because my word is bond. My word is bond. And that's all that matters. Abdullah, can you finish up and then we can go to
No,
another?
no, Kwasi. Go ahead, Kwasi. Then I'll go after Kwasi. Okay.
What I wanted to say was I wanted to put it in perspective with what I meant with manifestations. Our ancestors and what they done before us also was for our benefit. So like what we're doing today and what we want to set up is for the benefit of the future of our future children. So what I'm saying, we don't want the future children to void everything we did and just say that what where they starting off at, they begin to manifest. But yes, they can manifest, but we wouldn't want the future children to void all of our works and just begin to start wherever they are just because they're able to manifest. We will want them to go to what we established, set up to help protect them. And so the treaties are something, things that were established that for our benefit of the future generations. I don't want to void the treaties and begin to call ourselves anything and void the work of our ancestors. So yes, we can manifest. Yes, we're able to spark things with our conversations, but also the treaties and the diplomatic relations and the efforts before us can be used for us to better position where we are today. I don't want to void all of the treaties and begin to look at where we are just today without doing the Sankofa bird, looking back to what already exists and build upon it. And then we talked about, you mentioned what we have in common that we're not able to unify, or something of that nature. And I was going to bring up, what does China have in common? They have a Chinese constitution in common. What does the France have in common? They have a French constitution. What does these different nation states have in common? What do black people have a constitution that they go by? We talked about the men being able to protect the women, and that Susan has that protection. She legislationally, she has protection that will bag her. So if the whatever force comes to protect them, they don't have to worry about going to jail. They don't have to worry about being mistreated by color of law. So the men really are not in position to be able to protect the women because we have no political protection to be able to protect our interest in protecting the women. So we have to politically, we have to have a constitution and policies in place to justify the protection of our women. We can't do so under a colorable venue being labeled Negro, Black, and color, because the weapon that will be used against us is the weapon of I'm gonna the code, like Code Noor, the Christian black codes, and so they'll use legislation to deploy the national the Navy, the National Guard. They'll use legislation like they did on Black Wall Street to bomb the towns, and they'll use legislation to do that. So we're not in position to go out and protect the women, because when we go to court, what will happen? They'll use legislation to put the men behind bars. They'll use legislation to give you the death penalty. They'll use legislation. So yes, we can go out and attempt to do it, but what will be used as a weapon is legislation. So what we're saying, to better position ourselves to be able to protect the women, to be able to protect the children, is we need a political unity. We need to unify politically so that we're able to justify the mistreatments. What do we have in common? We don't have a constitution in common. So the question is, why are we not looking to unify under a national constitution, a national public election where we have a head of state, where we have people in position? Why are we still geared to vote for the foreign de facto venue and justify the position we're in? So we have to think sovereignty. We're not able to. It's not like we can go out and defend the women without having a constitution to protect that interest. Like it won't be done. Like, I've been part of a gun club. I've been walking and patrolling against the police about them mistreating people down in Atlanta. What will be used is legislation. So we have to. You got to also look at legislation. I mean, it's no. I already did it already. I already defended the women. I already was marching down on the streets. What they're going to use against you when you do that also is legislation. Yes, you have to have a militia. Yeah, you got to be trained. Yeah, you got to work out. Yeah, you got to know about recoil and things about weaponry. Yeah, you got to know different tactics of war. Yeah, you got to know that. But in order to activate that, how will you protect yourself when they use legislation to make you look like a they use different terms to put on you, and then then the army is justified and you can't go against the army. That's a backwards battle. So what's the proper way to position ourselves to be able to defend the women? Is unifying under a national constitution. I digress.
Let me look at we're talking about national political unity. All right. So we're not talking about Abdullah. I'm not talking about Abdullah Bey and what Abdullah Bey can do, and what Abdullah Bey's this. We're talking about our people as a whole. We're talking about restoring national political unity among our people. You have the people of Nigeria. Let me explain what that means. The people of Nigeria in a Nigerian constitution. The word people means, used in the political sense, means the repository of the collective sovereignty of the people vested in a constitution. In this case, the people of Nigeria. The Nigeria is the national name. Nigeria is the nationality of the people. The Nigerian constitution protects all Nigerians, nationalized or natural-born Nigerians worldwide, to protect them domestically through their domestic representatives, and protect them in foreign areas, all right, internationally, through their foreign agents, ambassadors, consul generals, vice consuls, chargé d'affaires. So this is what Kwasi is talking about, restoring national political unity, recovering our lost more sovereignty. Our mother is in the hospital. So when you say, I am Nigerian, I am Chinese, I am German, I am French, what does that mean? I am French, that you belong to the French government, to France, and you're protected by France. I'm in China. I am French. A French person is in China. I am French. They're still protected by French government in France. The French people are protected by the French government while they're in France. You have the ambassador, an embassy, the French embassy, the French ambassador, the French consulate, the French consulate general. You got the French Constitution. France has treaties. French signed multilateral treaties. This is what Kwasi is talking about. I yield.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to a clip in a minute, but I want to hit on the fact that I think it's easy for men to protect women who look like me. It comes in different ways than thinking about, you're just going to go to jail if you do it. And I'm happy that I know men who definitely protect women who look like me. And, that's just it. They're out there, and I'm happy for that. I was speaking mainly in corporate America and places where there aren't men there at a level that can all the time protect us. Although, sometimes they are, and they have to move in different ways in a chess game because it is their career involved as well. And that's what I was saying. The Black's Law Dictionary, when it talks about people, it says, this is the revised 4th edition. It does say that it's a state, people is a state, as the people of the state of New York, a nation in its collective and political capacity. And then there are lawsuits, of course, that support it. It says in a more restrictive sense, and as generally used in constitutional law, the entire body of those citizens of a state or nation who are invested with political power for political purpose, that is, the qualified voters or electors. And then I'm circling back to Dr. King, because he did also, maybe one of the clips that I'll pull up references this, him speaking about, politics and the politics involved in his movement, even though he wasn't considered saying that people were Moors, but the fact that he had a political movement and he did look at all of the people as being a part of his world, regardless as to what their nationality was. And then when you go into person, it says that it's a man considered according to the rank that he holds in society, with all the right to which the place he holds entitles him and the duties which it imposes. And so where are we in society where we live? Just where we live, like what is our rank? And I'm not talking about just a man, I'm talking about women and men. Like what is our rank? Some of us don't have rank at all, even though we may think we have rank. We can't make anything shake. Who's making things shake? What is the real rank of a person? And do we really need to have that verbally or in the community say, this is my rank? I look at people, men, women, and you're where you are. I'm where I am. If our energies come together and we manifest something, then we some bad mama shut your mouths. But there are some people that I know you're not going to do a ritual because you're scared. You're afraid of the spirit world, right? But you talk about the ancestors, but when it comes to putting in that work, you're not putting in the work. You won't put in the work. Taj Sharik Bey told me a long time ago, sis, you're going to be real surprised when you find that some of these brothers are not going to be able to hang with you when you talk about doing these rituals. And it is the hidden that's in the title that the two of you put together. That's the hidden part. That's the way I see it. The hidden is the spirituality. And that's what we don't tap into enough. And we don't talk about it enough. And we don't teach it enough. And we dismiss it enough. I'm going to play another Dr.
Well, let me qualify before you play that, Najmah. We got to clarify the title because we weren't talking about that, what you were saying about the title. So let me clear it because that's not what the title's about. The subtitle is not about what you said. So I just want to clarify that. All right. Because we got for the listening audience, the viewing audience. No, I'm saying that. All right. No, we got it. We're going to say the main title first. Got to say the main title first. The main title is, are we judged by the color of our skin? The word color is in quotation. That's the.
Go ahead.
Are we judged by the color of our skin? The word color is in quotation.
Hugh.
That's the main title. Subtitle, or a hidden truth, or a cover-up of a hidden truth. So the word, so our being so are we being judged for merely by the complexion of our skin? Are they judging us because of our complexion? Or is that a manipulation, a disguise, or cover-up of something else? I.e. birthright theft. I.e. what? They're claiming our land and our natural resources. I.e. what? They're suppressing our history. That is what the title's about. I just wanted for the viewing audience, this is for the viewing audience, so that they be clear on what the title's about and what today's presentation is about.
Okay, someone said, it's hard nowadays, Moabites. Our sisters and mothers are more concerned with feminism, promiscuity, and a lot of brothers and fathers are lost as well. Well, I don't feel like women who look like me are concerned with feminism. I feel that a lot of times when we speak about women issues, a lot of men who look like my children, my sons, want to put us in this feminism category all the time. It always happens. Like, we have opinions, we're not feminists. Next. Okay, here we go, Dr. King. Let's pull you up.
Street, Civil Rights, King, Van Oker, roll 20, sound 36.
Dr. King, this church is as good a place as any to go back over your commitment to the civil rights movement. When you went out from here into university and then you went to Montgomery, Alabama and started the bus boycotts there, what was the philosophy of the civil rights movement as you saw it then, more than 10 years ago?
Well, I would say then the philosophy was that we must go all out to use legal and nonviolent methods to gain full citizenship rights for the Negro people of our country. Now, of course, that particular struggle and that philosophy centered on breaking down all of the barriers of legal segregation. So I would say that in that period, the basic thrust for the gaining of citizenship rights for Negroes was to end the humiliation surrounding the whole system of legal segregation.
Dr. King, was there something peculiar to the place where you started and the kind of people you attracted? I mean by that, there was a strong attachment on the part of your parishioners in Montgomery to the church. They were older people, weren't they?
Yes, I would say by and large they were older people who participated in the boycott because they were the ones using the bus more than anybody else. And Montgomery was a community predominantly church-centered, so that it was very easy to get to the vast majority of Negroes because they were in some way connected with a church in the community.
Was there, in addition to your commitment to the idea of nonviolence, the white community having the monopoly on violence, that if you had tried violence, they would have met it with violence? It was the only device open to you, wasn't it?
Well, I'll put it another way, that morally, I was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society. And it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons. Now, there is no doubt about the fact that in our struggle in Montgomery and all over the United States for that matter, nonviolence is also practically sound. It would just be impractical for the Negro to turn to violence. He has neither the instruments nor the techniques of violence. We are about 10 or 11% of the total population of the nation, and I would say we're about 1/10 of the firepower. So it would just be totally impractical and unwise and unrealistic for the Negro to think of violence. Well, I saw this in the beginning in Montgomery, but this wasn't the basic reason that I turned to nonviolence and that I believed in it as a philosophy. I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
Is there something about nonviolence that made it, and I use that in the past tense, that made it more useful among Southern Negroes than the ghetto Negroes of the North?
I wouldn't say there's anything that makes it more useful to Southern Negroes. I think it is true that we've had more nonviolent movements in the South because The problem for many years was more crystallized and, in a sense, more visible in the South. We didn't have many civil rights activities on a massive scale in the North until 3 or 4 years ago. So I would say that we just haven't had a chance to experiment on a broad scale with nonviolence in the Northern Ghetto. I have the feeling that nonviolence is as applicable and workable in the Northern Ghetto as it is in the South. Now, there's a larger job there. The frustrations at points are much deeper. The bitterness is deeper. And I think that's because in the South we can see pockets of progress here and there. We've really made some strides that are very visible, and so the Negro knows that he can do things today that he couldn't do for doesn't find it easy to target as he does in the South. Job more resources we've done it in the South.
Well, in the South, particularly in Alabama, you had visible villains: Jim Clark, Bull Connor, cattle prods, police dogs. But in the North, you don't have those visible villains. Isn't it hard to get your people aroused and directed at something that isn't visible?
Well, that's exactly right, and this is what I was saying when I said it's harder to see a target. In the South, in the nonviolent movement, we were aided always in the North. The other thing is that you don't have legal segregation in the North as you do in the South. So it is much more difficult to get people to see exactly what you're doing, but it isn't an impossible job to get people to be aroused from their apathetic slumbers. But I still feel that Negroes in the North can be motivated just as they were motivated in the South. And I think as time goes on with the growing economic deprivation in the Negro community, it will even be easier, because people will come to see that not only is something wrong in general, but something is wrong in particular in their own economic and housing situations.
Well, what is it? I mean, how do you find it? It's very subtle in the North, is it not?
It's subtle, but it's becoming much more visible. Anybody can see that the schools are more segregated in the North today than they were in 1954 when the Supreme Court rendered its decision declaring segregation unconstitutional. Anybody can look around the ghetto and see that ghetto schools are predominantly segregated and devoid of quality. Anyone who moves through a major ghetto of our country will see the housing conditions. People don't have to be reminded that they are forced to live in slums in many instances, and they're often rat-infested, vermin-filled slums. And it isn't too hard to see the exploitation that the Negro confronts in the ghetto, where he is forced to pay more for less and constantly trying to make ends meet, but because of either no job as a result of unemployment or a job that is so economically unprofitable that the person can't make ends meet. And I think they see all of these things, and more they are coming to see them, because before the people of the North were looking to the South and they supported the struggles of the South. Now they're coming to see that their problems are very real and they've got organized to grapple with them.
Was there something hypocritical about the fact that the South existed and the North could point the finger? And then when the Civil Rights Acts were passed in the early 60s, you couldn't point the finger anymore?
Well, there was no doubt about the hypocrisy of large segments of the nation on the whole question of racial equality. I think the best example is that many of the senators from the North and the West, and congressmen generally, who voted for civil rights legislation with an issue applicable to the North, the whole housing question. And this, it seems to me, was the greatest expression of the hypocrisy
But isn't that part of the dilemma now? That people knew that Negroes were being denied what was guaranteed to them by the Constitution, by the fact that they were citizens of this country. Then when they were given those rights, do you feel the white community said, well, we've given them all that we have, now it's up to them?
Well, I think the dilemma is much deeper, and I think one during this period of transition has to be very honest with America. And honesty impels me to admit that America has broad racist elements still alive. Racism is still existing in American society in many areas of the society, North and South. And the other thing is that there has never been a single, solid, determined commitment of large segments of white America on the whole question of racial equality. I think we have to see that vacillation has always existed, ambivalence has always existed, and this to me is the so-called white backlash. It's merely a new name for an old phenomenon. I see the white backlash as a continuation of the same ambivalence and vacillation of white America on the whole question of racial justice that has existed since the founding of our nation. I think the other thing that we must see at this time is that many of the people who supported us in Selma, in Birmingham, were really outraged about the extremist behavior toward Negroes. But they were not at that moment, and they are not now, committed to genuine equality for Negroes. It's much easier to integrate a lunch counter than it is to guarantee an annual income, for instance, to get rid of poverty for Negroes and all poor people. It's much easier to integrate a bus than it is to make genuine integration a reality and quality education a reality in our schools. It's much easier to integrate even a public park than it is to get rid of slums. And I think we are in a new era, a new phase of the struggle, where we have moved from a struggle for decency, which characterized our struggle for 10 or 12 years, to a struggle for genuine equality. And this is where we are getting the resistance, because there was never any intention to go this far. People were reacting to Bull Connor and to Jim Clark rather than acting in good faith for the realization of genuine equality.
Do you think white people in this country, and I'm talking about non-segregationists, people devoid or thinking they're devoid of racism, do you have any idea of what they want the Negro to be in America?
Well, it depends on the level that we are talking here, because I think you have to make a distinction between the people who are genuinely and absolutely committed in the white community on the question of racial equality. And I must confess that I think they're in a very small minority.
He said a lot back then and versus now with the housing situation of a lot of people, you know, who look like us. The fact that we have this immigration issue where it seems like a lot of so-called, you know, immigrants are getting housing like immediately. And there's people who have been complaining about housing who look like us forever. And, you know, to see another group just so easily being accommodated, but yet, you know, we still have people who look like us who are living in slums, and, you know, and the housing problem in the DMV, I can name several places where the housing is horrible. One housing complex was just sued in court because of the conditions in that complex. You know, he said a lot. He to me is, did his part during his time period that he walked this earth. He stood up, and for that, I can't see anything else. When a man or a woman stands up to me, I don't care what they call themselves. I don't. You're standing up, and a lot of people don't do that. They're not in the communities really standing up and speaking. Maybe it is for fear, because all of our leaders that really stood up, were in fact assassinated. A lot of them were, I do see you standing up, Abdullah. I've known you long enough to see that you are standing up, but just for staying on this clip itself, your feedback on it. I'll start with you, Abdullah.
All right. One, we want to make it clear that Dr. King never called himself black. Let's hear me out. Let me explain what I mean. Our people didn't call themselves black, so we want to clear that up. Doesn't matter. So we get clear that when Kwasi talked about this before, Dr. King was born into, raised up in the legal fiction of black, Negro, and colored. We didn't call ourselves black. You have Code Noir of 1720, the French Code Noir, Noir, that's French. Black is modern English. The French Code Noir of 1685 applied in the Caribbean. The French Code Noir of 1724 applied in the Louisiana Territory. And before then, you have Asiento de Negro. The Spanish Crown, their policy is known as Asiento de Negro. So we didn't call ourselves Negro, colored, and black. Because when we say, regards what we call ourselves, we're letting the Europeans off the hook. They dehumanizing us and denationalizing us. We never call ourselves that. I mean, yes, you're looking at it now and say, hey, black man. No, I'm saying that, how did that begin, though? Kwasi talked about this. How did it begin? We can't look at today and say, well, Abdullah, people are in the hood. They're saying, hey, black woman. No, I'm not, I hear that. But who are these people? How did that begin? In the 1560 Geneva Bible, you have in Jeremiah chapter 10, 38, and 7 to 8 other verses. You have black Moor, BLACK, lowercase b, LACKE, space, capital MORE. That's the 1560 Geneva Bible. The 1599 Geneva Bible, same verses. You have Blackmore. Black is spelled lowercase b, LECK, space, capital MOOR. In the King James, 1611 King James Version, for the same verses, you had Ethiopian. So they removed Blackmore and replaced it with Ethiopian. From 1500 to 1800, Blackamoor was used interchangeably with Ethiopian and Negro. So we never call ourselves black, Negro, colored. Once again, the United States, when United States invaded Hawaii, the Kingdom of Hawaii in 1893, they put they put the Hawaiian queen under house arrest. United States did not strip. United States, they denationalized politically. That's meaning that the dismantling of their kingdom. And that's called the loss of Hawaiian sovereignty. That's denationalization. But not only are we denationalized, they're denationalized, but not dehumanized. United States did not dehumanize the native people of Hawaii. The native people of Hawaii, to this very day, know that they're Hawaiians. They know about their queen. They know that's their land, their history, the culture, the language. They have that. Not so we were what? Denationalized and dehumanized, black, nigger, colored. That dehumanizes us as well as denationalizes us. We got to use both words. This dehumanization and denationalization. For Hawaiians, it's just denationalization. For Moors, it's both dehumanization and denationalization. So we can never make the claim. We can never make the claim that we call ourselves that. When you do that, you're letting them off the hook. We can never make the claim that we're calling ourselves that. And also, I want to make it also, we don't have a housing problem. Just hear me out. We don't have a slumming problem. We have a European colonization problem. We have a colonization and conquesting problem, not a housing problem. It's a conquesting and conquesting and colonization problem. A subjugation problem. We don't have a dehousing because we have to look at it. We have to look at the whole picture from an international law framework. In international law, it's called under you have the law of war, the law of peace, and you have the law of war. Under the law of war in international law, you have laws of sovereignty. Under laws of sovereignty, you have conquest, annexation, colonization. That's under laws of sovereignty and subjugation. Those are the applications of law dealing with loss of sovereignty.
And due to that, created this issue. Due to that loss, it has trickled down and created a lot of social problems in the lives.
No, I'm saying, but the problem is, Najmah, what I'm saying is, I hear what you're saying, but international law is still conquest. I'm not disputing. I'm with you, but I'm saying, but let's first use conquest. Let's invoke international law. I'm saying invoke international law first. Conquest. Colonization. And so this is the continuation. So when you say trickle down, it's not a trickle down, it's still conquest. It's still subjugation. Whatever words you want, those are the words that they gave us to use. I'm saying we got to use it. We have to use the international law application of conquest, subjugation, colonization. That's what it is. Meaning the housing issue. It's conquest. They're hosing us down. It's subjugation. See, what I'm saying is they're giving us the argument because what? We don't know international law. They continue to frame the stuff for us. It's conquest, it's colonization, it's subjugation. However you want to shape it, it's still conquest, colonization, subjugation.
If someone in the community comes to you and tells you that they're living in a slumlord atmosphere,
subjugation.
Let me finish my question. How are you going to assist that person that comes to you and says, hey man, I have rats all in my apartment. This is what I pay every month. How are you going to assist that person with the remedy?
All right, Najmah, we're not talking about one person. You gave me a question. No, hear me out. Najmah, I heard your question. So I got you. I heard your question. Clear. I'm very clear on your question. Your question targets one individual. So I'm not addressing one individual.
Okay, if a community.
Let me, Najmah, let me finish, please, Najmah. I'm not addressing the issue of one individual. I'm addressing the issue of the indigenous, autochthonous, native people as a whole.
Okay.
So you constructed a question based on one individual. We're talking about when you're using. Let me finish, Najmah, please.
Because you said I adjusted. I asked the question based on the clip that we just saw.
I know that, but I'm saying the question was asked to me, and I'm addressing it. That's how to properly address it. When you're using the words, when you're using subjugation, that's not one. That's a nation of people, a people who belong to a nation. We're not talking about it. When you use the word subjugation, I'm talking international law. So when you enter the application of law of subjugation, you're not talking about a group of individuals. You're talking about a people belonging to the nation, because that only applies. The application of law in international law only applies to a nation of people who have been subjugated. It doesn't apply to loose individuals. So when I enter that we belong to a nation, and because of European conquest and colonization. So when you're using international law, you're talking about a people of a state who lost their sovereignty. We have to keep it there. When we're using other words outside of their application of law that deals with the people of a state or a nation state, that deals with individual. Right. So what they're doing is they're taking us away. They're taking us away from our mother. Our nation, our national principles. So what we're talking about is restoring the national principles by invoking international law. We're not a people. We're not a group of people that's loose. We are people that belongs to a mother. The native people of Hawaii are not a group of loose people. They're not a group of loose people. They're people that belong to the Kingdom of Hawaii. Yes, she's in the hospital. Yes, United States dismantled her. But they're still. So when people like me, there's people like me and Kwasi that's in the Kingdom of Hawaii that are fighting for the recovery of lost Hawaiian sovereignty. They do not address the people of Hawaii as loose people. They address the people of Hawaii as being belong to the Kingdom of Hawaii. They recognize their queen. They recognize that the United States put their queen under house arrest in 1893. You have to speak like that to get the people to think from that perspective, nationalistically. That's where I'm coming from.
Duly noted. Duly noted. My own question is going back to the clip that we just watched, because the person asked Dr. King, these people that the bus boycott is over, are they mainly older people, is what was asked. And he said, yeah, they're older people because they're mainly the ones that's using the bus to try to get out and make a living for themselves. So he felt compelled to be there for these elders because they were elders to him. I'm saying that if an elder came to me in my community and I knew this elder was living in a situation, I know how to help that elder with his matter. I don't care what he calls himself. I'm talking back to being in a slum setting, as Dr. King was just talking about. I'm going to get remedy for him because of how he's living. I don't care what he calls himself or any of that. I know how to get a remedy for him. My question is, why can't I focus on one person versus all these people that have to be living in the same complex in order to get a remedy? I was asking, how do we help people that are going through what Dr. King and other people were going through?
I can answer that. Why you shouldn't? Why you should not? Let me ask. Why you should not? All right. By addressing. No, you asked me why. You asked me the question. You asked the question why you should not. All right. I'm saying to you, what I'm saying is that by addressing the national principle, by addressing the issue from a national principle perspective, When you're talking nationality, the nationality is connected to sovereignty. So we say, so once again, let me say why not. The people of Nigeria, let me give this example again. The people of Nigeria, you know that word people, that's the collect, and used in a political sense, is the collective sovereignty of the people of Nigeria vested in a constitution. Kwasi put it so well about a constitution, and that what it so when you and then the nationality, that is the binding quality. So we say, so I say, so that the Nigerian constitution protects all Nigerians. So I'm saying that we got to get our people back to this mindset. This is where I'm coming from. This is where Kwasi coming from. I hear you, Najmah. You're talking about tomorrow. I get you. I got you. You're talking about tomorrow, 2 days from now. But I'm talking about is that we got to get our people to think on this level of what nationality is from a political perspective, and what a constitution is from a political perspective, and how a Nigerian constitution protects all Nigerians worldwide. So we got to get our people to thinking of the value, of the importance of the political application of nationality and her connection to sovereignty, and what the political application of a national constitution. Kwasi put it so well. All right. So this is where we're coming from. I hear what you're saying, right? But we got to direct they'll never get there. They'll never get there if we do not direct their attention, their teachings, their learning, their mindset. We got to restore them back to the national principles, to teaching our people the rule of law, teaching our people nationality, the rule of law, and constitutional self-governance. That is very important. We can do this.
So the remedy to help people who look like us, who are living in slumlord situations, is what, actually?
Answer the question is teaching the people their nationality. We're not talking from a mere identity. So when I say teaching the people nationality, I'm not talking from a mere identity perspective. I'm talking the political application of nationality. Once again, the people of Nigeria. That right there. You read the word people, Niger. You gave the legal definition of the word people. That's so right there. That's very important. I was saying is we got to get our people to this level, because I don't want to, by spending our time is very limited. And spending our time just dealing with one individual upon one individual, we got to address the national principle perspective, so that we can address the issues of our people in the international arena. We got to guide them to this way. So we are doing it.
I'm asking a question.
I'm saying that this is how I am addressing the situation for our people, is that we got to restore national political unity among our people. It's not overwhelming.
No, I don't think it's overwhelming at all. I think it's actually really simple. Each one teach one, and you can help people and help nations as well. But if a person is in need of assistance and they are an elder, and I'm going to stick to that because that's
I addressed that, Najmah. I heard you. I hear what you're saying, Najmah. I did acknowledge what you. I acknowledged what you said. I did. So we can move on. We can move past that because I'm saying we can move past that because I did acknowledge it. Okay. I acknowledged it. I acknowledge what you said.
Then we can address what Dr. King was saying about people that look like us that are living in slumlord.
I know. I'm saying we can move past that because I did acknowledge it.
Okay. Do you want to add to anything, Kwame?
Yeah, I'm in the speech.
And just to camelback off what Brother Abdullah Bay was saying, in the speech, he also mentioned jobs, better jobs. He also mentioned profits, the people that's not don't have a job to support their family, that they're not able to get the proper job. He mentioned that too, which connects to housing. He also mentioned poverty. He mentioned being organized. So he just didn't mention housing. What we're saying is constitutional unity embodies all of that. It deals with job employment. It deals with housing. It deals with poverty. It deals with the food we eat. So I'm in agreement with what you're saying and what Dr. King said. But only thing we're alluding to is the national constitution embodies all of it, and the rest of it just is just talking just that. We're not just talking just housing, because you got some people who got an issue with jobs and being able to provide. A national constitution embodies all of that. That's the basic way I can say it. It's not. I'm in agreement with the old lady who need better housing. I agree with that. I agree with the person that also need a better job. I also agree with the person that need quality food. And so the national constitution just embodies all of it, all at one time. That's all we're saying.
Okay, I stuck to the housing because of the whole elder part, and even now knowing that some of my elders who are no longer here that lived in New York their whole life and had, were paying very minimal amount for housing, right? But even before the gentrification took place, were paying a minimal amount, but still not living in the best conditions. So
And I
the,
and I agree with you. I also know people who have proper housing that's eating poor quality food too.
right,
So they
and
they have a good house.
I stuck to the housing for it because
Yeah, and we're just saying the national constitution embodies all of it. It's not separating one position alone. It's not singling it out. I know people that have adequate housing, but they're eating bad quality food, and so they get sick, and so they have cancer, so they have diabetes. So I care about them too. So the national constitution embodies them all. It's not singling anybody out. That's all he's saying.
yeah, I'm simply asking about people in our community that we can touch every day because I try to touch people that I know I can help us right here, right? As if they come to me and they need something, and then if I can't, I know people in the community that I can always call and say, look, this person is in need of this because it's always somebody in the community that does something very, very, very well. And I don't always know everything and I don't purport to. But it's good to know that if someone comes to me that I feel confident in being able to pick the phone up and know that I can call certain people, even if they're in another state, I know that they have resources where they're going to say, here, you can tell them to call this number. So that was the clip. You're right. The jobs is an issue as well, because going back to the whole immigration problem right now and the fact that a lot of jobs are so-called being taken from people who look like us. And it was even mentioned in some of the campaign speeches that people who look like us are going to be without jobs because of this situation. So it is a political problem. It is a political issue. And these are political discussions that we're having. To me, there's no right or wrong way for how we have to walk this life. I'm not judging anyone based on whatever they may call themselves. I have all of my friends are of different backgrounds and religious and all of that, and it doesn't matter. It's just, if you're a man, are you walking as an alpha male? I mean, no disrespect, to homosexual men, because some of them can be on the front line and help better in the capacity of protecting me than heterosexual men, but that's a different topic. I'm saying that I'm not judging anyone based on their political name for themselves, or their religion or any of that. I'm just not here for that. I'm too old for that. So back to Dr. King. Let's just do one more clip and then we can call it. There are some comments in the chat. Someone says it's human rights violations and misrepresentation. Who better to govern the land than the bloodline heirs? Yeah, and what mental and political capacity? Yeah, and that's it. The mental capacity, it definitely has to be right. Someone said our people are all about reparations, right? Political legitimacy is a prerequisite to that. to reparations? I know we had a whole show on reparations that time, and it was hot. But it's back to that, because you do have some Moors who don't believe in reparations and say that reparations is the wrong word. Like, why are you talking reparations? And here's someone in the chat to say,
but let's qualify that though, because if we qualify, we don't want to leave it like that though. We don't want to leave it because we have a listening audience. We got a listening audience, a viewing audience, so we don't want to leave it at some Moors don't believe in reparation. We want to explain it though. Why? Okay. Because that's important. Because it's important that we have to provide clarity. All right. The reason why myself and Kwasi and others like that don't push the reparation argument, I'm going to explain so that people, because it's very clear. Because I don't want the viewers to say some Moors don't believe in reparations. I don't want them to say it like that and not know why. Okay, it's important. All right, that's what I'm saying. Because they will do that. I'm telling you. I know. All right. We got what's called post-liminium. Post-liminium is the international law principle of restoration, or returning a people to their original condition and status at the time in which it was lost. All right. So let me give this example, this analogy. I come to your house, Najmah. All right. I invade your home. I put you and your children in chains, bound you in chains. I release the chains 10 years later. I draft a constitution and say, I draft the Constitution. This is how I'm going to govern you in your home. Remember, I don't leave the home. I don't leave your house. All right. So then you push for reparations. You do this campaign, and I'm still in the house. I'm still in your house. I'm still in your house. I'm still governing you in your house. And you arguing about reparations. Man, you held me in chain, for 10 years. Abdullah, you held me in chain. Man, you owe me reparation. Man, I'm still in your house now. You ain't arguing that. You ain't arguing post-liminium. You arguing reparation. I'm still in your house. So the issue is reparations. Restoration is returning us to our original condition. Reparations is once you are restored, once you are made whole, then you argue reparations. I mean, my returning your stuff to you is not reparations. That's making you whole. Mm-hmm. Reparations would be, I gotta lose something. I gotta lose now. It gotta come from me. I gotta lose. It gotta come from me. It can't where it comes from you. That's your stuff. So that's why, because the conscious Moors know that this is our land. That's why conscious Moors know that we are under continued European conquest and colonization. Unconscious Moors who push for reparations don't know that this is our land. Unconscious Moors come from, we were brought over in ships. You know what I mean? We were brought over in ships. You know what I mean? We built this country. You're on the back of our slaves. You built a slave labor. You owe us. That's unconscious Moors. But conscious Moors like, no, this is our land. These are not natural resources. Restore us. Mm-hmm. That's so why.
Versus restoration, if the number.
I just wanted to explain it. Though.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. So restoration and reparations, if there's a number on both words, regardless as to what you want to call it, but the numbers are the same. If in fact.
No, Najmah. Hold on. Let me, before you regardless, but you said something. It does matter what you call it, Najmah.
Okay, and then you can say that when I ask the question. Let me finish my question. So you have a number on reparations and you have a number on restoration. If a present was presented, because reparations in the same Black's Law Dictionary It says to redress, the redress of an injury, amends for a wrong inflicted. Reparations, restorations are both addressing injuries. They're
All right.
both, we're trying to be restored, but they're still. So if a presentation is presented for in the name of restoration versus reparations, and a check is sent to conscious Moors, unconscious Moors, what number goes on both titles where you're going to feel half whole again? What number has to go on a check for it to be restoration / reparations, or a combination of both? Is there a number that has to go on for it to even be included as being reparation? Because to me, reparation is what it says, which is an injury. And if I'm injured because of an act of someone, then reparations does in fact apply to my petition.
Hold on real quick. Hold on. All right. I want to address before I go there. I want to address, it does matter what word you use. This is for the listening audience. The word you use matters very, very, very much, because that is invoking a particular application of law. So I want the listening audience to know it matters very much what word you use. All right, so let me explain again. My analogy. Reparations is the wrong word. Post-millennium is returning a people to their original condition before conquest, before slavery, before subjugation, before captivity, before servitude. Reparations is the wrong word. It's called post-millennium. So we're not talking a check. We're talking the land and control, regaining control of the land, not a check. They give you a check and I'm in Najmah's house. I give her a check, but I'm still in that house. Najmah takes a check from me. Najmah will be a fool to take a check from me and I'm still in a house. Since Najmah's not a fool, Najmah would not take a check from me first. She would not take no check from me first. Najmah would say, get the hell out of my house.
I would take a check and I was told,
I said first. No, Najmah. I said first.
Get out of my house.
I said Najmah. I said first.
First, second.
I'm saying no, Najmah. You want me out the house first.
I want both. And with the
Najmah,
money,
I didn't say
more so out my house.
Najmah, I didn't say you wouldn't take Najmah. I didn't say that you wouldn't take the check. I'm saying order. The order first. Make me whole first. Make me whole. Restore me first.
That wouldn't be my order. That would be your order. That would not be my order.
So I'm in your house. I'm in your house.
Okay.
I'm in your house.
I can't get you out of my house. Okay. Yep. I'm hostage.
All right. So I'll offer you a check. I'm gonna offer you a check. No problem. We're gonna play this. I'm gonna play this. We're gonna play this. I'm in your house.
Okay.
I'm gonna offer you a check. I'm gonna offer you a check. I just take the check.
Go on with your.
No, you gotta do. Are you gonna take the check? Are you gonna take the check?
I have the check. I endorsed it. It's in my trust account.
I'm still in your house.
Not for long.
I'm in your house. I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, you have.
I'm still governing your house.
You think you are, but now that I have resources to move differently on the board, you're not going to be there much longer.
Najmah, the land is the resources. The land, the natural resources, the land. Burkina Faso, Mali, hear me out. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. They were on their land. They were on their land. The French controlled poor. On their land, poor, poor, poor. Because France took the natural resources and took it to France. They were on their land.
Okay.
But France took the natural resources. Now they kicked France out. Najmah, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. They kicked the French out. And now what? They got control of the mines. They got control of the natural resources now.
I saw that.
So that's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So here they are in their land, and the French still was controlling them for 60 years. And the people were dirt poor, starving, dying. That's what I'm talking about.
I hear you. Najmah's going to take the check, and whether it's restoration or reparation on the memo line at the bottom, Najmah's going to take the check, and that's just going to be.
And I'm going to still be in your house. I'm going to still be in your house, controlling you in your house.
Not for long. And
I'm going to still be in your house, controlling you in your house.
Right, just the Nino Brown effect.
I'm going to still be in your house and controlling you in your house.
Not for long, you won't.
I'm going to still be in your house and controlling you in your house.
It's almost just like the battered woman that has to stay with that man that's whooping her ass every day.
I'm going to still be in your house and controlling you in your house.
She's going to get out of the situation. And when she gets her strength back, she's going to get him out of her house. But she can't do it when she's bogged down. She's bogged down. And now she got a little bit of money. Maybe she's taking some classes now that's going to open her up spiritually so that she can fight spiritually, because it's a spiritual fight. And maybe the money will help her to get into some classes where she can release herself and fight back spiritually and get people out of her house that shouldn't be there, that's not good for her.
We're talking about a people. We're not talking about just individuals. We're not just talking about individuals. Once again, we're talking about.
Let's talk about tribes. Then our families are our tribes. Our families are really our tribe. So even with the money that we get from reparations, restoration, that's going to be applied to our tribe. It's going to be applied to our tribe. And I don't know anyone that would reject. We had this conversation before. I
disagree with you. I'm going to disagree with you on that, which is fine. We're going to disagree because I'm very clear that controlling the natural resources, Mali, there's examples like that, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, they now control their resources. They're rich in minerals. So it's about controlling the resources and the land. The land is everything. The land is the money. The land is the wealth. The only thing is that we lost because we don't have control. The land is the wealth, the natural resources, the oil. Here you got all these oil, these Europeans in Texas became millionaires, some billionaires through gushing oil off our land. The Bush family and them gushing oil. Those are what? Natural resources. The land is the wealth.
I get it. Bill Cosby's house is on top of oil, and that's another reason they wanted him killed. Kwasi, what's your take? If someone presents a check to you and your tribe, are you turning it down in the name of reparations, restoration?
Let me say this. All right, look, I want to just walk with it. I'm gonna make it quick. So, all right, somebody come inside of my house. They take over my house. Now let's keep in mind, at the time of them taking over my house, Federal Reserve notes is not the medium of exchange. So gold and silver and natural resources is the medium of exchange when they took over my house. But now that they took over my house and the natural resources, they go print out paper in the name of the natural resources. So when you get your check, I'm only bringing you something that I printed out. It's not of value. So will I take Federal Reserve notes or would I want natural resources? Because at the time of them taking my house, we're not using federal, if you just follow me, we're not using Federal Reserve notes. So they took over my house. Now 100 years go by, and they say they'll give me a check. But the medium of exchange, what they're gonna give me, was not what was the medium of exchange at the time of taking my house. So they used the natural resource. At first, I would have wanted fish. I would have wanted agriculture. I would have wanted oil. You know, I would have wanted livestock. That was value to me. But over the 100 years of them being in my house, they turn around and say, "Hey, I printed out a bunch of paper. I printed out a bunch of these, and I'll give you a Federal Reserve note in replace of your livestock, in replace of your oil, in replace of your agriculture, you know, in replace." So will I take Federal Reserve notes in replace of the natural resources? No. If it's so we put it in perspective that when they took over your house, the medium of exchange was not this. This is not the so they printing, they giving you this, and you, if we take this Federal Reserve note in the name of the misuses and the abuses that happened while they was able to take over the house, then how useful is that? It's not. It's an illusion. It's a weapon. Is when you take the check, what bank are you gonna put it in? What, what's the regulations of the bank? When when you were trying to file taxes, do you have to file taxes on the check that I gave you? Is that income? So it's a lot of other factors if we really talking about it for real. But just saying I'm gonna take a check, just generically saying it, no, I won't. No, because it's more to it than just saying that. It's not about them giving you Federal Reserve notes. It's not about that. It's about the livestock, the natural resources, the oil, etc. Them printing out Federal Reserve notes that has inflation, taxation. So they still you ain't gained nothing.
I get it.
So if
The money, the energy, and money is the
no,
energy.
no, no, I'm just saying, you asked me would I take the check, and I'm saying no. Out, give me my house back.
Okay.
No, and then I'm explaining why. No, you said I know that the check is this though. People talking about a Federal Reserve notes with numbers on it, with CUSIP numbers on it. That's what people talking about. I wouldn't take that. No.
It's galactic.
No, the answer is no. I would not take a check from the person that conquered my house and take Federal Reserve notes and replacing my livestock and replacing my oil and replacing my fish and my agriculture. That's stupid of me to take something that they printed out in the name of finance. That'll be naive on my side to take a check, then they turn around and interest go up, or they turn around and go up in gas.
Right.
They turn around and go up in bread. Then you turn around and give. So no, that'll be crazy. When you so they give you a check, you're gonna go hire their militia. So you're gonna take money. So the person that took over your house has a militia. The militia's not in the house. So we're gonna take the money that they give us and we're gonna go hire his militia.
I don't really know what I would do.
So that's what I'm saying. It's illogical. We shouldn't take the check.
As to what you would do but you wouldn't do anything because you would reject it.
No, he would. No, Najmah, he would do something. You say he wouldn't do anything.
Take the money. He wouldn't take the check because it's Federal Reserve.
No. He didn't. No. You say he wouldn't do anything. He said that he would want his land back. He wouldn't want his natural resources.
Exactly.
So but I'm saying, the oil,
but that is. But I'm saying that is doing something. Is that would make his position of what he wants, though? That's, you say he wouldn't do anything.
Form of Federal Reserve notes is what I'm saying. He's going to do something. He wants something opposite. He wants the land.
I want what I had originally.
Federal Reserve notes. He doesn't.
No, I'm saying I would want. I'm saying anybody will want what they had originally. They wouldn't want something that you print. I'm saying just anybody.
I was telling Abdullah he's saying that he doesn't want the Federal Reserve notes. He wants the land and the resources. And
I don't want the Federal Reserve notes. I explain why.
I get it. I get it. Okay, so let's just do one more last clip, and then we can.
Yeah, I guess she'll be back on. Okay.
Now she put the clip on.
Jr., president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, will face the nation. In a live, spontaneous, and unrehearsed news interview, Dr. King will be questioned by CBS News correspondent Dan Rather. Benjamin Bradley, Washington Bureau Chief of Newsweek magazine. To lead the questioning, here is CBS News correspondent Paul Niven.
Dr. King, welcome to Face the Nation. We'd like to ask you about this summer's demonstrations, the white backlash, the Senate filibuster, the November elections, and charges of communist infiltration of the civil rights movement. We'll begin the questioning in just a moment. Dr. King, back in March, you were talking about beginning demonstrations in early May in Alabama and perhaps also here in Washington against the Senate filibuster. What has happened to those plans?
Well, these plans are still intact. We may have revised the dates a bit, but we definitely plan to have massive demonstrations in the state of Alabama this summer. We feel that the time has come for a full-scale assault on the system of segregation in Alabama, and certainly the hypocrisy of the governor of that state needs to be exposed, so that we plan to work in several communities in the state of Alabama. In fact, we are now recruiting students by the hundreds and thousands to join what we refer to as our nonviolent army. And they will constitute the persons who will engage in these demonstrations all over the state. We will center the demonstrations around the right to vote, around public accommodations, and all of the external manifestations of segregation in the state.
Starting when, Doctor?
We haven't set the exact date yet, but we feel that it will have to get underway immediately after school is out. Many of our participants will be students, and we're trying to wait until the closing of school. So this would be about the last of May, the 1st of June.
What difference, Dr. King, will passage or non-passage of the Civil Rights Bill make in all your plans for the summer's demonstrations? I mean, will they go on if it passes, and if it doesn't pass, will it make any difference?
Well, I'm sure we will have demonstrations whether you get a Civil Rights Bill passed or not. Now, I would say that if the bill is passed, it will increase the hope and give the Negro a new faith in the legislative process, and I think it will be possible to keep the demonstrations much more disciplined and nonviolent. On the other hand, if the bill passes, we can see another element present, namely that it will be necessary to enforce it. Passing the bill is simply one step. After it is passed, it must be enforced, and we will have to go into communities all over the South to test compliance. There will be some communities that will comply, and maybe in these communities we won't have to have large-scale demonstrations, but where you have outright resistance and a refusal to comply with the Civil Rights Bill if it passes, we will have to demonstrate in order to get the federal government to take a stand in the area of enforcement.
Dr. King, I'm interested to know why the dates of starting the massive demonstrations has been pushed back. Has the White House been any influence in this?
No, not at all. We haven't discussed demonstrations with the White House at all, neither the Alabama demonstrations or our plans for Washington. Now, I may say on the Washington plans that we have been a little confused and at points frustrated concerning the developments here. On the one hand, you have a real filibuster taking place, but on the other hand, it is clothed in the garments of a sort of gentlemanly debate. And this has brought about a lot of confusion. Many people watching the processes taking place in the legislative halls of our nation feel that things are moving along all right. But deep down within, I must confess that things aren't moving all right, and I'm really appalled and distressed at what appears to be a sort of behind the scenes, certainly a backdoor trading away of vital sections of the Civil Rights Bill by persons who just a few weeks ago made it clear that they would not support any crippling amendments.
Who are some of those persons?
Well, I wouldn't like to give any names. I would simply say that some officials of the Justice Department and some senators. I'm appalled at some of the things taking place and agreements being made with Senator Dirksen These are crippling amendments, and the whole purpose is to so emasculate that bill that it will have no meaning. And this is confusing. I think it is unfair to the American public. It is unfair to all of the individuals who have stood out in such a forthright manner for civil rights.
Which of the proposed amendments do you find unacceptable?
Well, I would go right down the line. I think the jury trial amendment is certainly unacceptable. One only needs look to the South and see that a jury, by and large, an all-white jury, will not convict a white person for doing anything to a Negro, a white person who disobeys a court order, from the De La Beckwiths of Mississippi on through Alabama and many other things taking place. So this is objectionable. I think any of the amendments that call for voluntary compliance rather than compulsory enforcement are objectionable. Because it just isn't going to be done that way, and I stand on the idea that we must have compulsory enforcement. Also, the amendments which place the burden of responsibility for suits on the individual rather than on the federal government, and this is what we see through all of the Dirksen amendments. And I think they are very bad for the whole nation, and I think those who are going along with it are really playing with dynamite and playing with the health of our nation.
What kind of communication, Dr. King, are you maintaining with the Senator Humphrey and the Justice Department on the progress of this bill?
I have talked with them several times since the Civil Rights Bill came into being and since the debate. I haven't had any communication, though, over the last few weeks. And I am so concerned about this now that I plan to talk with him in the next few days.
With who, specifically?
Well, mainly with Senator Humphrey and Senator Kiko and other liberal senators who are leading the fight for the Civil Rights Bill.
How united is the Negro leadership on this bill? In other words, if these senators wanted to find out if such and such an amendment was acceptable to the Negroes, who would they talk to? In other words, are you agreed with the SNCC people and the NAACP people?
Well, we've talked about this a good deal in what is known as a Unity Council of Civil Rights Leadership with all of the heads of civil rights organizations, and we all agree, absolutely, that the bill should pass in the Senate just as it passed in the House, and we don't want to see any amendments. There may be some technical changes in language and that kind of thing, but any amendment which changes a House bill and weakens that bill would be unacceptable.
Well, Dr. King, it's quite clear that it can't be passed without substantive amendments. Wouldn't you prefer to have half or two-thirds of a loaf than no loaf at all?
Well, it depends on the sections where you have the compromise. I must frankly say that the section dealing with outlawing segregation in public accommodations, the section dealing with equal employment opportunities, and the section dealing with cutting off federal funds in federally assisted projects where you have discrimination are so important that I would rather see no bill at all than a bill devoid of these sections in a strong sense. I think it would merely bring into being new hope in the Negro community, and pretty soon Negroes would come to see that they don't have anything, and we would be in a worse situation than we are now.
Dr. King, do you plan to attend both of the national political conventions this summer?
Yes, I do.
What do you intend to do there?
We have planned, we will work together in the civil rights organizations seeking to seat delegates and unseat what we consider improper representatives because the Negro is denied the right to vote in several states. And there is a real possibility that we will have a march on both of these conventions calling for strong civil rights enforcement, strong civil rights legislation in areas where we may not get it in this particular bill, and a strong stand on the part of both parties in the area of civil rights.
How about the once talked about plans of holding a third convention, a civil rights convention, after the Democratic and Republican nominating sessions?
Well, I have no plans on that, and I don't know whether the other organizations will follow through on it or not.
Dr. King, continuing with politics just a little, President Johnson has just had a triumphal tour through parts of the South. Do you feel that the South will vote for him, support him, or any Republican candidate?
I think if the election were held today, President Johnson would carry the South overwhelmingly. There may be one or two exceptions like Mississippi and Alabama, but I think he would carry it overwhelmingly because he is a Southerner. I think there's a great deal of pride on the part of Southerners because the Southerners in the White House. I don't see any Republican candidate at this point who can carry the South over President Johnson, even Senator Goldwater.
What about the Republican Party generally in the North? What kind of support among Negroes does it enjoy now?
Well, it will depend on the candidate. I think in this election year, more than any other, the Negro will vote for the candidate and the party that will take a forthright, determined, and consistent stand on the civil rights issue. And if a strong Republican candidate is nominated who takes a very strong position at this point, I'm sure that he can get some support in the Negro community. It is difficult to say at this point, or impossible to say, whether that person could get more support than President Johnson. I think it will depend on developments over the next few months. Certainly President Johnson is taking a strong stand now, and if this continues, I'm sure that he will get great support from the Negro voters.
Dr. King, do you intend to campaign actively for...
We can end it now, Najmah.
No, I certainly don't intend to campaign for any candidate. Now, I must confess that I am moving now into what I consider the valley of decision, trying to determine whether I will do something in this election that I've never done before, namely publicly endorsing a candidate. There is a possibility that I will do this for the first time, but I don't plan to actively campaign for any candidate, even though I may endorse.
Dr. King, it's often been said in the past that Negro voters held the balance in many marginal congressional districts. Well, now that Governor Wallace has shown he can get 30 or 35% of the vote in northern states, isn't it likely that the white backlash vote is going to exceed the Negro vote in many districts?
I don't think so. I think this is a temporary development, and I feel that there are so many factors in the Wallace vote that we can't consider this decisive and even impressive. I think you have to consider the fact that a vote for Wallace is often a vote against the person against whom he's running.
Okay, everybody, this is the end of the broadcast. I had more clips, but they are very long, and I just wanted to give homage today to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., regardless as to what people's stance is. To me, he was an alpha male, and he stood up, and so for that, he's also an ancestor, and so, for that, peace and love and homage to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Shout out to the guests today who were on the show. Shout out to everyone in the chat for, keeping the comments like really, really, really on point. I love the diversity of the comments. Nobody was in a box. Everybody had their own position on everything. I thank you. I love you. And I hope to see everybody again soon. Peace and love.